Previously, we met Fraser, David and Rob, 3 entrepreneurs and Alibaba.com customers, who've each taken their good ideas and turned them into great businesses. In this episode, we hear about the risks and fears they faced whilst they were setting up their businesses, and get some invaluable advice on how to go about starting a new business venture.
When we left university, all three of us had the feeling that we wanted to do something entrepreneurial, but we had neither the idea, nor the skills, nor any money to do it. So we went into the corporate world, where Gregor and I did graduate training schemes, learning a bit about sales, finance, marketing, and Ali went off to be an accountant. But while we were there, a few years later, we started to have some ideas, so we started to test those ideas out. The first idea we had, it didn't work because we didn't know anything about the subject matter, so that was a lesson that we learned. The next one, we completely reversed that and we went into an idea around sport, which we know a lot about and we love. However, we couldn't find a way to make any money out of that one, so that one failed too.
When I was 13, we went on holiday to India, left the family home that we'd been in for 20 years and just went travelling. After the incredible experience of all the travelling we did, it felt it was time to knuckle down, come back and start a career. So I made up a CV to get a job, because obviously didn't have really much experience. I got a job within an online recruitment company. My old boss knows about it now. I did eventually tell him after about 6 months, once I was settled in there and had proven myself.
Well, for us, it really wasn't a day one. It was very much we were both still working in full-time jobs. We just put stuff in the marketplace by approaching a couple of stores to see what they liked, to see whether it sold. And I guess from that perspective, we were able to prove there was a demand for our products.
I was on a train one day and I was reading an article about a flip-flop brand that had started and within a very short space had sold over 5 million pairs. Gandys flip-flops came to my mind. It all sort of fell into one. I spent the next year researching and refining the product, and in January 2012 formally started the business. There was no plan, it was just literally no different to our travelling, seeing what happens and just hoping you land on your feet.
One weekend way back in 2006, we were out on a boys' weekend in Dublin, and one of our mates had showed up in this all-in-one lycra blue suit, and we were walking down the main street in Dublin and the reaction was unbelievable. One night after we'd worn it on a night out in Canada, and we were going home to work on one of our other failing businesses, and we thought, why are we wasting our time on this when we could sell these suits and we could make a few quid doing that? We never thought it was going to be a massive idea. We didn't think there were enough crazy people in the world to wear these suits, but we thought, we could make a few quid on the side by just selling them instead.
From all the research that we did on this business, we realised that trade fairs is where you get your customers, and that's the main route to market. I think the most nerve-wracking part of the business is when you go from just simply going to have a look at a trade fair to actually exhibiting at a trade fair. Surprisingly, our first trade fair was particularly good. I think subsequent ones were not so good. So I think that with trade fairs, you really need to approach them from a long-run perspective, because you're going to have bad ones, you're going to have good ones.
Once we'd had the idea, we knew we needed to get the products, so we started to look at where we could find them, and it quickly became obvious that the best place to source them was from abroad. We invested our little bits of money, our £1,000 each to get started. We would see where we'd grow from there.
I suppose manufacturing was the biggest fear that I had about this business. I guess in the back of my mind, the last thing I wanted was acres and acres of stock sitting in our warehouse that we couldn't sell. So we started small. We started manufacturing locally, and we tried to do as smaller orders as we possibly could.
When I first came across Alibaba.com, with no experience of sourcing products, I've found it very easy to navigate, finding suppliers, trying out different flip-flops. All it required was, just a little bit of common sense, not to sort of throw any money at anyone, just to do some general research and homework and sort of background checking on everyone. It was literally as easy as using lastminute.com to book a holiday.
So once the business was growing and we knew that there was a good demand for our products, we then looked at profitability. When we started manufacturing in China, we were able to source the product for about 60% cheaper than we were getting a very similar product in the UK. Obviously that improves our margins enormously. So this allowed us to produce a fantastic product at the price demanded by the large retailers. We were then able to go, right, we need to order in volume so that we can start to make some money.
This was the initial product we started with. It worked with B2C, selling at festivals and via Facebook and things like that. In terms of using it commercially, we couldn't sell to retailers because the margins weren't sustainable. And we eventually got to this product, and we've gone from ordering 400 to now 10,000 within a few months.
As our orders grew, the first one was 200, a few boxes that came to my bedroom. The next one was 2,000, and by that time we'd had to find a warehouse. I think because the business had grown to that sort of size, people had stopped saying we were mad. People were a little surprised. Not many people give up mainstream corporate jobs to go into fancy dress. It's not the usual route, but we were pretty convinced it was the right thing to do.
Paul was living in Melbourne and I was on a trip off to India to go meet with suppliers. I then decided to fly across to Australia to meet Paul and surprise him for his 21st, but also obviously share the idea of what I've been doing and convince him to come home.
He tells me about this flip-flop idea, and I thought it was very crazy, selling flip-flops in the UK. Eventually I then give in and say, okay, I'll come home.
We literally put all of our savings into it and just ordered 4,000 units. There was no strategy or plan in it. We just knew that we had the product and everything where we wanted it now. The supplier we found via Alibaba has been more of a partner to our business. They've helped us with various things from the initial sourcing right through to the logistics, the packaging, absolutely everything.
When you're dealing with the small retailers, they need a more personal service, and that's easier to give to people. When you're dealing with the big ones, it becomes, as it is with any big business, rules and regulations and delivery times and safety testing and all that kind of stuff, and everything becomes more documented and regimented, that you sell them a lot more products, so it's worth it in the end.
Coming up in our next episode, Fraser, Rob and David each decide that in order to grow their businesses, they need to start placing larger orders with suppliers. With their biggest ever order on the way from China, Gandys flip-flops have to get retailers to believe in them, while David faces his greatest fear when a major high street retailer cancels an order.
This left us exactly where we didn't want to be, with a warehouse full of stock that we had to then go and find new customers for.